Have you ever participated in a system, maybe it's a game or a corporate job or just a massive group project where the only way to truly succeed was to completely stop playing by the established rules?
I mean, finding yourself at odds with the fundamental architecture of an environment is incredibly risky.
Yeah.
You're essentially rebelling against the foundational incentives that were, built to guide your behavior. It's basically a fast track to failure in most scenarios.
Right, but what if the architecture itself was secretly begging to be broken? Today, we are taking a deep dive into a historiographical and design analysis of this tiny 16-page tabletop role-playing booklet from 1983. It's called Black Opal Eye.
Yeah, product designation RPGA2.
Exactly. And that acronym, RPGA, stands for the Role-Playing Game Association, meaning this was originally designed for official tournament play. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore how this incredibly short, limited edition booklet, which was born out of severe, literally terrifying financial desperation, somehow single-handedly shattered the whole loot and kill paradigm of early tabletop gaming.
It really did. It essentially birthed the modern era of collaborative storytelling.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So to really grasp the shockwave that Black Opal Eye sent through the community, we have to transport ourselves back to the early 1980s.
Right.
The tabletop landscape, specifically Dungeons & Dragons, operated on a fundamentally different psychological framework than it does today. The early adventures, what historians now call funhouse dungeons, were entirely mechanics first. They were highly lethal, completely disconnected sandboxes.
Yeah, I was reading through some of these older source materials, and it literally felt like, you'd open a wooden door, find a fire-breathing dragon, and then step into the very next room and find an ice vampire.
Right.
There was zero logical reason for either of them to be living next to each other.
Exactly. The ecosystem didn't matter at all. The primary motivation was simply the extraction of wealth. You were there to accumulate abstracted wealth, gold pieces, magical swords, and just try to survive totally arbitrary traps.
Yeah.
The narrative, if there even was one, was just a thin coat of paint over the mechanics of resource management. But then, Tracy and Laura Hickman enter the scene.
And they completely flipped the script.
They completely abandoned that funhouse model. They crafted this localized, deeply tragic narrative set in a place called Hantu Valley.
The setting alone, it feels like a massive leap forward. It centers around this tranquil elven village called Kota-Hutan, which sits adjacent to the imposing Gray Mountain. But the real genius here is the architectural stratification.
Yes. The physical space actually tells the story of generations. So the elves had built a sacred site, the Temple of the Quiet Way, atop the mountain, and this temple was built to honor a benevolent human wizard named Elias, who had protected their community in antiquity.
Right, but beneath that active, peaceful temple lies the primary setting for our adventure, which is the Halls of Grandeur.
Exactly, which is actually Elias's original stone keep. Centuries ago, his enemies literally dropped a mountain on top of his keep to crush him. So you have this serene temple sitting directly on top of a buried ancient wizard's tower.
And that buried keep is where the trouble starts. There's this evil human cleric known as the Rahib. And deeper lore actually reveals he's a worshiper of the demon lord Orcus.
Yeah.
He sneaks into the ruins looking to loot a rumored elven dowry, but instead he finds 3 stone statues. And these aren't just, decorative architecture. They contain the rotting, conscious souls of an ancient witch coven, Trilena, Karelena, and Solorena.
Right. And these witches were Elias's bitter enemies. Centuries prior, they attacked his keep to steal an artifact of immense power called the Black Opal. Elias thwarted them and imprisoned their souls in stone, though it cost him his life to do it.
Wow.
But now, in the present day, the Rahib wakes them up, and the witches strike a truly Faustian bargain with him.
It's remarkably dark for the era. The witches' physical bodies have completely rotted away in the adjacent crypts over the centuries, but they offer the Rahib access to the tower's ultimate treasures. In exchange, though, he has to capture 3 living elven maidens. The witches plan to use dark magic to swap souls, stealing the long-lived, beautiful elven bodies so they can escape their stone prisons. And then they'd trap the innocent elven souls in the statues for eternity.
And the mechanics of the game actively work to compound this tragedy. The Rahib doesn't just hire random mercenaries to do this dirty work. He uses charm person spells to enthrall the temple's own young elven acolytes, known as the Siswa.
Oh, that's brutal.
It is. Now, in the basic Dungeons & Dragons rule set of the time, elves had absolutely no mechanical immunity to charm magic. So these innocent acolytes are turned into unwilling foot soldiers, forced to abduct their own kin.
Including Kota-Hutan's most beautiful maiden, Rahib. Because the ringleader witch, Trilena, is incredibly vain and demands her as a personal vessel.
Right.
But I have to push back on this premise for a second. Let's think about the player mindset here. If early D&D was basically a chaotic casino where players are just there to, like, smash slot machines, grab coins, and try not to get killed by the bouncer,
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
how did players accustomed to that casino environment react when they were suddenly dropped into a high-stakes, emotionally devastating hostage crisis?
Well, that is the defining question of this module. And the answer is that the Hickmans didn't just politely suggest the players change their behavior, they enforced it mechanically. They turned the game's core progression system against the player's base instincts.
They hit them where it hurts, their experience points.
Exactly. The module explicitly instructs the dungeon master to penalize the players. For every charmed elven Siswa guard a player kills, the DM must dock their experience point.
Which is wild. I mean, it's like docking a race car driver's pay for speeding.
Yeah.
In 1983, combat lethality was the entire core loop of the game.
Oh, totally.
Your progression, your power, your entire metric for success as a player was tied to killing monsters and taking their stuff. Experience points were the currency you needed to level up and survive.
What's fascinating here is how this brilliant piece of system dissonance completely transformed a tactical war game into a complex moral puzzle.
How so?
By penalizing lethal force, the game forced players to pause and adapt. Suddenly, they couldn't just swing their swords. They had to figure out how to deal subdual damage.
Like mechanically pulling their punches?
Exactly. Mechanically pulling their punches to knock the guards out rather than killing them. They had to utilize environmental traps, sleep spells, and diplomacy. It proved mechanically that true heroism requires restraint. You aren't a hero just because you have a sword. You're a hero because you know when not to use it.
And that philosophy extends to how you actually win the adventure, right? Because it's not a binary pass or fail where you clear out the dungeon and go home. There are tiered victories.
Yeah, tiered success states. You can achieve a minor victory by navigating the ruins, finding the body-snatched maidens, breaking the enchantment, and forcing the witches' spirits back into the statues.
Okay.
You save the immediate victims, sure, but the threat remains dormant. You've essentially just kicked the can down the road.
But to get the major victory to canonically resolve the story, you have to locate the Black Opal Eye artifact, purify it of its dark taint, and then insert it into the eye socket of a massive stone dragon statue deep within the ruins.
Right.
And that ritual permanently exorcises the witches and destroys their souls. It teaches the player that just treating the symptom isn't enough. You have to engage with the history of the environment to enact a permanent cure.
I want to focus on that phrase you use, engaging with the environment. If a dungeon master is going to convey this new morality, the physical space itself has to reflect real-world logic rather than just random monster placement. You can't just have random dirt tunnels anymore.
Right. If you were asking players to treat the world like a real place, the world has to feel real. And the Halls of Grandeur was an architectural masterpiece. It has this massive hidden secret in the design.
Oh, this is one of my favorite details.
Tracy Hickman actually repurposed the map for this dungeon from the very first adventure he ever designed for a home campaign. The first floor of the Halls of Grandeur is actually a meticulous architectural recreation of Orthanc, the Black Tower of Isengard from Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings.
It is. And during the translation into an official TSR product, Hickman had to carefully scrub all the overt Middle-earth lore, mostly to avoid the intense copyright lawsuits TSR had faced from the Tolkien estate in the past.
Makes sense.
But he kept the imposing, symmetrical, and logical architecture. The rooms have specific purposes, laboratories, crypts, treasuries, living quarters, that actually make sense for a working wizard's keep.
And that architectural logic is also home to one of the most bizarre and brilliant puzzles I've ever seen in a game, the Wizard of Wines.
Yes.
Players exploring the ruins find physical handout labels for a fictional vintage wine brand. We are talking actual physical props handed to you at the table by the person running the game with serial numbers printed on them. There's Purple Grape Mash number 3 with the suffix of U.S. Red Dragon Crush with Mies W. and Champagne de l'Estompe with my N.
The mechanics of this puzzle are deeply layered, demanding a totally different kind of cognitive processing from the players. First, if a character drinks the wine, they fall into a magical coma for 2 literal turns and experience prophetic visions of a black gem and a silver arch.
Vital hints for upcoming challenges.
Exactly. But more importantly, The wine is the key to a complex teleportation maze later in the module.
It's a magical wine tasting statue.
The party eventually finds a stone statue, and they have to pour the wine into its mouth. The quality of the vintage dictates which portcullis opens, altering the difficulty of the maze.
That is so cool.
It is. The serial numbers on the physical labels are encrypted codes for the DM. Purple Great Mash number 3 is the lowest quality tier. Its suffix axis opens the southern exit, which is the longest and hardest route. Red Dragon Crush is medium quality, opening the western moderate route. And the highest quality, Champagne de l'Estompe, opens the northern exit, the shortest and easiest path.
Think about the deductive reasoning that requires at the table. You have to use real-world logic to realize that champagne is a fancier, higher-quality beverage than a grape mash. And then trust that the dungeon's architecture will reward you for offering the statue the good stuff.
Right.
It's inventory management, logical deduction, and physical props all rolled into one. But the architecture isn't just clever, it can be utterly brutal, too. I was reading about this golden trap in the ruins, and it honestly sounds completely unfair. If you touch the wrong treasure, you just turn to solid gold.
It is inescapable.
Yeah.
It is one of the most fiendish traps of the era, but perfectly narratively justified. If intruders tamper with certain treasures in the ruins, they are instantly transformed into solid, precious metal statues. And crucially, the module affords the players absolutely no saving throw.
Wait, no dice roll to save yourself? You just become a gold statue?
None. The victims are just left in the hallway as a macabre warning to other looters. But, adhering to the Hickman's philosophy, taking away the saving throw reinforces the theme. Blind greed is an automatic fail state. There is a cure, however.
Okay, good.
The transformation is entirely reversed, but only if the surviving party members achieve that ultimate moral victory and exorcise the witches. It firmly rewards heroism over statistical luck or resource extraction.
We're talking about all these incredibly modern narrative-first mechanics. But this was 1983. This wasn't some massive corporate R&D project. Look at this detail in the source material, a stark image showing a staggering sum of money. $30,000.
The creation of this module is intrinsically linked to the financial ruin of its authors. In the late 1970s, Tracy Hickman's business partner in his independent publishing venture defaulted on bad checks.
Oh, man.
Yeah, this left the Hickmans solely liable for a $30,000 debt.
Imagine being in their shoes. In the late 70s, that is an apocalyptic amount of money. You're facing complete financial ruin, and your solution is to invent a totally new psychological framework for a game about elves and dragons. It's an insane gamble.
Driven to the brink of bankruptcy, Tracy went straight to TSR to sell the full rights to his self-published modules. As he later recounted, he pitched them literally so that he could buy shoes for his children.
But when TSR executives saw the material, they didn't just buy it, they hired him full-time. And that's because the Hickmans brought with them a proprietary design manifesto they called Night Ventures.
The Night Ventures manifesto consisted of 4 strict, self-imposed pillars of design. First, a player objective more worthwhile than simply pillaging and killing. We see that with the hostage rescue.
All right.
Second, an intriguing story intricately woven into play itself. The lore isn't just a text dump at the beginning. It's discovered organically through the environment and dying NPCs.
Yeah, the show don't tell approach.
Exactly. Third, dungeons with an architectural sense, which we discussed with the Orthanc map. And fourth, an attainable and honorable end within 1 to 2 sessions of play.
And getting those pillars to work mathematically was a massive collaborative effort. We really have to highlight Laura Hickman's crucial unsung role here. Imagine being in their living room. Tracy brings a binder full of what he called Swiss watch mechanics.
Right.
Way too much complex math that tracked every single variable but totally bogged down the story.
A dungeon master running a game is essentially acting as a human CPU. They have to track monster health, spell slots, player positions, and narrative pacing all at once.
It's exhausting.
It is. So Laura would rigorously playtest Tracy's early drafts with groups of friends. She systematically questioned the narrative pacing and the necessity of those convoluted rules. She essentially forced Tracy to strip away all the unnecessary mathematical complications until the rules, in his words, collapsed into pure magic.
A perfect concrete example of this elegant magic is how the module handles the witch encounter. Think about the cognitive nightmare of a DM trying to run 3 separate spellcasters, tracking individual spell slots for each witch while also managing player actions.
Yeah, that would be a nightmare.
The Hickmans solved this brilliantly. If your party encounters the body-snatched elven maidens individually as they wander the dungeon, they are relatively weak. mechanically treated as basic first-level mages. But if you fail to divide and conquer, and you let them unite in the same room alongside the Black Opal artifact, their coven synergy activates instantly and seamlessly.
Right. Without any complex tracking required by the DM, the threat level immediately escalates. The three witches suddenly combine into a unified coven. They essentially jump from weak beginners to the equivalent of high-level mages, a level 4, and level 5 threat, all working as a single tactical unit.
And on top of that, Trilena has a ticking clock mechanic. If she's attacked, she mentally summons her pet, an intelligent Black Panther familiar. The DM rolls a 10-sided die, a 1d10, and that panther arrives in exactly that many literal units of time or rounds.
Oh, it's so smart.
It creates this unbelievable dynamic tension. The players know help is coming for the witches, counting down round by round using just a single dice roll.
It maximizes player engagement while minimizing the cognitive load on the person running the game. It's brilliant design.
So, this desperate gamble by the Hickmans didn't just save their family from bankruptcy. It fundamentally altered the DNA of the entire tabletop industry.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the success of Black Opal Eye in RPGA tournament play was a revelation for TSR's upper management. Remember, tournaments were usually all about high scores and ruthless efficiency.
It's just a numbers game.
Exactly. When players proved they were starving for emotional resonance instead, the executives famously concluded that they had too many dungeons and too few dragons.
It completely shifted their corporate strategy.
This realization led directly to Tracy Hickman being tasked with conceptualizing a world-spanning narrative project that heavily featured dragons and epic storytelling. That project became the Dragonlance franchise, arguably the most successful transmedia property in tabletop history.
And the legacy doesn't stop there. The gothic horror elements, the tragic villains, and specifically that bizarre Wizard of Wines puzzle, they carried those directly into their next masterpiece, the legendary Ravenloft module.
Oh, yeah.
That exact puzzle with the exact same wine names, Red Dragon Crush, Champagne de l'Estompe, survives to this very day in the modern 5th edition adventure Curse of Strahd. Modern players sitting around a table right now are interacting with a vestigial inside joke lifted straight from a 1983 booklet, and they don't even know it.
It really is incredible how enduring their work is.
So what does this all mean? When you look back at this 16-page booklet, the overarching takeaway is incredibly inspiring. It proves that even within strict rudimentary constraints, profound and enduring magic can be forged. But you have to prioritize emotional stakes over mere accumulation. You have to be willing to stop playing by the old rules if you want to build something that lasts.
I think that brings us perfectly back to the titular artifact itself, the Black Opal. In the hands of the witches, it was a tool for theft and immortality. But for the players, it wasn't a weapon to wield. It wasn't a treasure to be sold for gold and experience points.
Right.
It was a narrative fulcrum. It was the key required to cleanse the dungeon and heal the environment.
It shifted the players from being mere tourists in the dungeon to being stewards of the valley.
And I think that leaves us with a fascinating final thought to mull over. When you look at the treasures you are chasing in your own life or your own career, the accolades, the promotions, the wealth, ask yourself, are they just points to accumulate on a scoreboard? Or are they actual tools you can use to resolve a larger, more meaningful story for your community?
That is an incredible question to leave off on. Are you just looting the dungeon, or are you healing the valley? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening.